Welcome, Queen. In my Why Unspoken Expectations Are Ruining Your Relationships, I shared how I came across the article in which it spoke of how a young man had passed away from working a demanding job that required over 100 hours a week. And I'm going to share with you, as I told you I would, what I fully discovered after fully reading the article and why having work boundaries is so important. Also, remember, if you desire or need custom solutions tailored to your specific situation as it relates to your personal or professional life, you can schedule your discovery call. The link is in the description below, especially if it is related to resolving and having solutions for conflicts you may be experiencing. So, what I discovered is this. This young man's name was Leo. He was 35 years old, working for Bank of America on a $2 billion project. Billion with a B. Now, here is what the article said, and I'm going to read it as they wrote it. Reportedly, he endured consecutive weeks of working of 100-hour workloads, but, and this is me now picking up, but his autopsy revealed that I was about to say the other word, but he passed from a blood clot in his heart. Here it is. This man giving his all day in and day out. And they use the word in this article, reportedly. Now, I have an issue with that, and I'm going to park right here for a moment, and I'm going to define the word reportedly, not because you lack intelligence, but because I want us to really sit in this for a moment. Because how many times have you given your all to someone and they didn't appreciate it? How many times have you given your best to someone and it went unnoticed? How many times have you found yourself bending over backwards and it was as though you didn't do anything at all? That's why I'm going to define the word reportedly, because I want us to really take in how sometimes we can give our best, our all, even to our detriment on the front end. And on the back end, people and organizations can just simply dismiss it as though we've done nothing at all. Here it is. I paid a visit to my friend Webster because y'all know me and Webster, we are friends. I like Webster. I love Webster. So here it is. It says this. According to what has been said, used to indicate what has been said or reported. Hold on to that. We're going to come back to that in a moment. But I also paid a visit to my friend Oxford. And Oxford had this to say about reportedly. According to what some say. And then in parentheses, it has used to express the speaker's belief that the information given is not necessarily true. And now I'm going to refer back to Webster's, because Webster's had this synonym. The first synonym that it showed me was allegedly. And I take issue with that because, again, when we use the word allegedly, we are saying we are not certain if this is or is not true. And I don't understand how you can have an employee working and you are not sure how many hours this employee worked. So what is there to allege? I mean, I'm not certain how his pay was determined, but I would think if you have an employee working clocking all these hours that someone would be certain that he did or did not work these hours. That's just me. Because like I said, too often we are giving so much of ourselves to people and to organizations, and on the front end, and then on the back end is the attitude is like, so what? Just let's repost the job. Sit with that for a moment. Because if we don't have any boundaries on our jobs and at our jobs and how we show up in our life and our expectations for our life, too often we can be dismissed. Too often we can be assigned priorities. Too often we can be assigned expectations. Too often we can end up in places and spaces where we find ourselves in a position that we shouldn't be in, where we find ourselves negatively impacted, not just externally, but internally. So I want you to know that it is so important to have boundaries at work, to have boundaries for the place you work. Because even though you may not feel it, meaning being overworked, you may not feel like you're being overworked, your body feels it, and your relationships are negatively impacted by it. And as I looked at the photo that they had in this article of this young man, he had a wife. Not anymore. He had a daughter. Not anymore. He had a son. Not anymore. And so, yes, the wife can remarry. Yes, the daughter and the son could have someone else to step in and be a support system that their father can no longer be. But here's the thing. They won't ever have Leo back because he's no longer here. And so I want you to really sit and think about, what is your job demanding from you? And is it worth it? Because sometimes we can dismiss the importance of our presence because we're so focused on collecting a paycheck. And here's the thing. Your presence is life-giving, but your paycheck is temporary. That's why you have to keep going back to work. Because once you get the check, what that check provided was temporary provision. But your quality of life matters. And so I want you to think about your quality of life and whether or not you have truly prioritized having a high quality of life. And so today I'm going to call you into action to do a workplace audit assessment using 4 questions. Here they are. I wrote them down for you. You can pause this if you need to. I'm sure you might need to. Am I doing things to stay at this job that are bad for my mental, emotional, physical, or psychological well-being? If so, what are they? Number 2, I'm going to run back through them a second time, but let me just go through them this first time. Number 2, am I required to do things that are directly or indirectly violating my priorities or disrespecting my boundaries? If so, what are they? Number 3, am I operating from a space or place of emptiness, stress, pressure, or desperation? If so, how frequently is this occurring? And lastly, what am I willing to do to change it? So from the top, the workplace assessment audit. Am I doing things to stay at this job that are bad for my mental, emotional, physical, or psychological well-being? If so, what are they? Am I required to do things that are directly or indirectly violating my priorities or disrespecting my boundaries? If so, what are they? Am I operating from a place or space of emptiness, stress, pressure, or desperation? If so, how frequently is this occurring? And lastly, if you answered yes to one of those or any of those questions, what are you willing to do about it? Because in order for change to happen, there has to be a change agent in the room. And that change agent has to be you. You have one life. And I'm here to tell you, no matter how friendly or kind, considerate, compassionate, or even nice you think your coworkers are, your management is, I am telling you, the day that you leave, or heaven forbid you pass away, they may be sad for a moment. They may talk about how they miss you for a moment. But I guarantee you, unless they are downsizing or getting ready to shut down, they will repost your job. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. It happens every day. Every day. And I wasn't surprised by seeing this. It was heartbreaking. But another person that I discovered that had workplace issues, a demanding job, his name was Lee. And he was younger than this guy. I believe it stated he was 23. And before he passed, he had wrote an article at college. And he wrote that self-care matters. And I agree with him. Self-care does matter. And here's what else I want you to know. Not only does self-care matter, that if you don't take care of yourself, you leave others behind who will wish you would have taken care of yourself. For working to your detriment is to leave yourself without care. As always, I'm Coach Sam telling you that 24 hours doesn't seem long, but in 24 hours, you can change your life. So go ahead and do something life-changing now.